Hi, I'm Cher Safran with Share Wisdom Network and the host of the Nautilus Book Awards Author Spotlight Series. Now celebrating 20 years of honoring better books for a better world, Nautilus Book Awards continues this important mission forward to spotlight visionary books that co-create a better world and more positive future. The Nautilus Awards embraces books from a wide spectrum of the publishing industry, which radiate hope and wisdom, inspiring and connecting our lives as individuals, communities, and planetary citizens. This is a vast and crucial conversation now more than ever. The Author Spotlight series offers opportunity to increase the volume and visibility of the authors' voices as found in these empowering Nautilus Award-winning books. Author Joel Simpson is with us here today, sharing insights from his Nautilus Award-winning book, Earthforms, Intimate Portraits of Our Planet, which won the Gold Award in the Photography and Art category. Joel Simpson, a New Jersey native with a PhD from Brown in Comparative Literature, went pro as a photographer in 2002 after teaching college English, French, and Italian, and playing jazz piano professionally in New Orleans. Since then, his work has shown extensively in solo and group shows in the US and Europe, been published many times, and has won awards including the Gold Nautilus Book Award. In addition to doing art criticism since 2004, Joel has traveled extensively in the US, Canada, Europe, Asia, and a bit of Africa. And over the last few years, he's chosen landscape and geological photography as his main focus. Joel, it's so wonderful to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much, Cher. And let me say how not only am I honored to receive this award, but I'm so glad that the Nautilus Book Awards has the same mission as I feel that I have in my photography.
So tell me about that mission, because I know that you feature the Dakota Access Pipeline and the protests around that in this book that's about beauty and nature. So tell me about this dedication.
Well, I mean, we all know that our Earth is in trouble. Not only is climate changing and getting warmer and wetter and drier at the same time, but our dependence on fossil fuels has put us in great peril. And this Dakota Access Pipeline was put into native lands belonging to the Lakota peoples in North Dakota. They arranged a major protest in 2016, which made the news and was heavily documented. And I've met their leader, Chase Iron Eyes, a Lakota lawyer, and also their lawyer, Danny Sheehan, who spoke very eloquently about this right at the time that I was formulating this book. And I had the bright idea, I thought, of dedicating the book to these people who could always use contributions. And so I transcribed Danny's wonderful talk that I heard that day in August of 2017. We turned it into something readable, and it is one of the essays that are in the book. I'm very honored to have Danny as part of this project. He's a somewhat famous lawyer. He was Daniel Ellsberg's lawyer back in the early 70s. And he was also the person who brought out the Iran-Contra scandal. So, and he's a very, very dedicated person. So there are photographs that I rented from the photographer of the actual protest. And that's what begins the book, along with some essays on the photographs, on my photographs themselves. What I'm trying to do with this book, Cher, is strengthen the aesthetic and spiritual bond that people have with the beauties of the earth. And I'm sorry to have to add those that remain. And so increase people's enthusiasm emotionally to defend the earth and hold on to what we have.
Well,
so there you are.
You do it extraordinarily well. I've just spent hours and hours looking at your book and reading the essays too, which are beautifully written. You're an amazing writer as well, by the way. And but your photographs, you speak to the difference between landscape photography and geological photography. So what's the difference?
Well, first of all, landscape photography kind of includes geological photography. Much of what we see in landscapes are rock formations, mountains and canyons. Geology, though, is also its own subject, a vast subject that gives us a sense of the age of the Earth and how briefly we've been on it. So there's a large apparatus of science, wisdom, and even spirituality in geology when you appreciate the great time durations. Now, what I've found is that in geological photography, what geological photography has to offer, apart from landscape photography, is the close-ups, the small-scale views of rock formations, which I call miniscapes. We have landscapes like maxiscapes or macrocosms, and miniscapes or microcosms. And here, once you take away the sky above, horizon, earth below, or water below orientation, then you have a field which you can explore and fill with compositions that have a kind of an abstract, even an abstract expressionist and sometimes surrealist power, where you're showing energy vectors. You're showing what I would consider, if you want, the unconscious of the Earth that's a result of conflicting forces of layering and sedimentation on one hand and erosion on the other, uplifts and more erosion. So these are conflicting forces whose product over millions of years gives us the formations that we see. So there's automatically an integrity, you might say a compositional integrity to these formations, and then it's up to the photographer to select, frame, and compose them to make them into visually appealing, exciting, energetic compositions, works of art. And then furthermore, digital photography, post-production, gives us the means of bringing these things out even more, maybe taking out the color if necessary, enhancing certain aspects of structure, brightening up the shadows, dimming the brights a little, so everything is a little more visible, and so that we can see the lines of force in the composition that really make it looks very similar to an abstract expressionist composition, except it's the origin is entirely natural.
That comparison that you just made to surrealist art, I just found that the whole time throughout the book, and I'm actually noticing around me in nature things I've never noticed before, having seen your photographs. So let's show your photographs, and the first one we're going to show is actually particularly powerful.
I took this from 30,000 feet up. It's over the Chugach Mountains of Alaska before dawn, coming back from Japan. And I love it. The colors are wonderful, but actually it's a very sobering picture because it shows a receding glacier. It shows the ice melting. Well, this is dawn at Mono Lake. I call this dawn EKG, which is a kind of a joke. Mono Lake is this wonderful lake with these tufa towers in northeastern California. Now, here I am in a hot air balloon over Cappadocia, Turkey at dawn on April 4th, and there are other hot air balloons, and you see a volcanic landscape and the sun, which has just peered over the horizon. To me, this is a breathtaking photograph. This is what the best thing that anybody's landscape can do, give a sense of exhilaration, but also a sense of discovery. Seeing something you've never seen before. This now is a miniscape. It's a color miniscape, and it's the interbedding of sandstone and mudstone. And of course, it was my choice to make it a diagonal, which makes it an interesting picture visually. So that's what I can do. This is in Point Lobos. Here we are in Bisti Badlands or Bisti Wilderness, northwestern New Mexico, with a a hoodoo with a hanging, a projecting piece of rock that will be falling off within the next 50 years or so. I crouch down to get the sun behind it. Go ahead. This is a crack in the ice in a microclimate in Mongolia on the edge of the Gobi Desert. And my guide spoke no English and I spoke no Mongolian, walked about a mile and a half down this, trying not to fall on our butts. And luckily, it was a very foggy day, so there's an element of mystery in it. This is limestone in the Upper Peninsula of Newfoundland, and I thought it was very interesting in its Gothic formations. But you find things like this that are very evocative when looking at rocks. Here's Mono Lake in mid-morning with the wonderful reflecting, extremely still lake. There's very little, it's a very salty lake, so there are no fish. And luckily it was a cloudy day and a very beautiful day. Now here's something I consider surrealist because the puddles on the right is vaguely figurative. And then on the left, we have these indentations filled with salt water. And they were actually created by salt water. That's called taphony. The technical term is taphony, and I've been finding taphony all kinds of places, even in the desert where there once were shallow seas. And this is a miniscape, and it's a miniscape that invites the awareness of the viewer to play. It's like a mental playground. So you can make your own associations. This one's fairly obvious. It's not always so obvious, but it can be dredging things up from your own unconscious. It's the unconscious of the earth working to draw things out of your own unconscious. And it's in Canada. I call this Swerving Square. It's a small slot canyon in Page, Arizona, near the much larger and better known Antelope Canyon. And I found it was amazing to see how regular this was. And then it swerved around and was perfectly framed by the ceiling, just 30 feet high. Now here's a landscape. This is the very famous Horseshoe Bend near Page, Arizona, at sunset. And I always wonder why you don't see more pictures. It's so beautiful at sunset. You always see them in midday. Which who knows? Maybe it's because it's so gorgeous that they figure they don't have to wait till sunset to get a good picture. But I happen to be there at sunset, and I like this picture. Now this is a David Munch style landscape where the foreground, you can see the plants in the foreground very clearly. This is Maroon Bells near Aspen, Colorado, with a lake in the background. But this is a typical of the standard landscape. And I took it in 2003 and actually won a prize with Outdoor Photographer. But this is where I'm coming from. Now, here we are inside a sea cave in Zinzuluza, the Grotta di Zinzuluza in Puglia, Italy. And you walk along that path, get into a boat, and for €5 more, they'll take you to sea caves that are only accessible by boat. And this is one of the most intriguing ones. This is in a place called Surprise Cave in Halong Bay, Vietnam. Halong Bay is this magnificent expanse of water with 1,967 granite little monticules, little islands, little tiny mountains. And there are many caves. This is supposed to be the best one. And I rounded a bend and saw the sunlight coming in, the daylight coming in and illuminating the very heavy atmosphere in the cave, which was oppressive to be there, and you only feel it through most of the time. Then you come to the end, the light coming in from the exit illuminates it. And then there's that pike-like rock standing up, and people say, "Well, this looks intergalactic," but whatever. This is a picture of Giant's Causeway, the very famous columnar basalt site in Northern Ireland, and it's from my drone later in the evening when most of the people were gone. It gives you an idea of how it's shaped. It was formed about 50 million years ago from an eruption. And here it is, around the same time in the evening, with the sunlight on it. And you can see the mostly hexagonal, approximately 40,000 hexagonal shapes from the eruption. And here, this is the last photograph in the book, is Monument Valley with a single headlight. I had my camera on my tripod, and all of a sudden this car rounded the bend, and I took the picture. I thought, what a gift. It looks like a giant interplanetary device coming down with a single headlight, but it's not. But it does have the familiar silhouette of Monument Valley. So it's Monument Valley, but an unconventional view. I try to photograph things I've never seen before. That's my mission. Every photograph
that you have taken can be like a week's worth of viewing, because there's a feeling about the photographs, there's a visual impact with the photographs, there's a history in the photograph. I mean, every part of it is embracing. Honestly, it's really magnificent. The way you have captured what you see and help us see in what is so natural, but we naturally don't see it. So I'm so.
Remember, there are 12 pages of notes on the photographs, which tell the stories and give a little of the geological lore. I don't claim to be a geologist or a scientist, but I do want people to understand the scope of the Earth's history that they're seeing, which is so amazing. We live in a tiny slice of time, sitting on this immense history.
And the way you bring it to life for us, even that part that's dying in our experience, and you bring to life what was and what we could make again. So you have had a journey to create this book, and you mentioned that you want to see something new, and that's your mission, is what can you see that's new? What do you hope for those who experience this book? It's not just reading it and looking at it, but it's experiencing it. What do you hope each of us takes away from this book?
Thank you so much for asking me. I want people to travel. I want people to see the world, and I want people to see the world around them. You know, Thoreau said, look in your backyard. That's not an exact quote, but he said, look around you. Look at the marvels around you. I mean, I live in the New York area. How many people know that the Hudson River is the southernmost fjord in the world, for example? How many people examine the rock formations? They're dark. They're black and brown. Look closely. Look closely at road cuts wherever you are. There's so much out there, so much richness. And of course, look at art. Look at all art. If you're a photographer, don't just look at photographs. Look at surrealist art. Look at abstract art. Look at contemporary art. And this will help you see the beauties in the natural world and see them in your own way. And that's what I've tried to do, and I want to encourage people to do that. I want them to fall in love with the earth.
I love that. Fall in love with the earth. Well, you do that with your book, Joel. Joel Simpson, thank you for writing this amazing book, Earthforms, Intimate Portraits of Our Planet, because it really touches our hearts, opens our minds, inspires our lives, and helps us fall in love with the earth.
Thank you so much, Cher.
Thank you. And thank you all on behalf of the Nautilus Book Awards team. Thank you.